Okay, hello everybody. Can you hear me? Let's see. Oh wait, hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna pause for a little bit here and just give some people some time to get in. You know, basically, I know that I have this is my fault starting very, very late today, and I do want to apologize. I had some things that came up that I needed to take care of, and I also have pushed back the time today. It's been a very solemn day. It's been a day of a lot of events, and I just, thought that this would be a better time to go live. Oh, hey, Emmanuel. Thanks a whole lot for letting me know that. So, I'm just going to give people a chance to come in. Give me 1 second. I am going to find a song that can be helpful while we wait and get in the mood to hear what I think is going to be something that is very important for us to talk about. Oh, hey, Elise. Hi, sweetheart. Welcome into the chat. Give me 1 second. Oh, I think this is a good song. It's called I Got Options. Not me per se, but the Black community as a whole. We all have options. So I get what I want. So it's pop and the ball is in your court. Court like a ride, man. I play the like sport. Two-tone, yeah. Like a lick, yeah. Put it stick, yeah. You know how it goes. Making my way downtown. I got options. I'm gonna pull up on you right now. But I got options. Is you fucking right now? 'Cause I got options. You ain't gotta lie. 'Cause I got options. Okay, so it looks like this is going to be more of an intimate setting today. So hopefully, maybe some other people might join in as the conversation gets going. I wanted to talk today about another thing that I think is plaguing the Black community, and that is one, poverty and the resulting scarcity mindset. There's been a lot of talk lately about people having what's called a scarcity mindset. It's the thought process that says that there will never be enough of something that we feel is necessary for our survival, our sustenance. Something that we think is either necessary or helpful for us moving forward as a collective. Um, where do we think this idea even came from, right? Well, in my opinion, we have to think about why we're even in the country that we're in right now. I am, considered to be ADOS, an American descendant of slaves here in the United States. And a lot of my counterparts also have this same thought process. It sneaks up on you, and we have to work very, very hard to make sure that we don't allow it to take over everything that we think and we do. What is the result of having a scarcity mindset? Well, if you believe that there will never be enough money, never be enough resources, it comes with a defeatist attitude. It comes with hopelessness. It comes with the feeling of a lot of competition. You see death everywhere because if it's not here today, it will be soon on the horizon because there isn't enough for us to be able to survive. The competition comes in is because you now view everything that another person has as being taken off of your plate. It's a limiting feeling. It's a feeling of being boxed in and limited in your ability to not only survive, but to thrive. So thriving now becomes something that is a pipe dream. It's something that we don't even put a whole lot of stock in. This is apparent in the way that we talk to our kids. We talk to our children when they have a dream. That the first order of business for a lot of Black parents is to go ahead and squash that dream. We aren't going to be able to pay for that. We talk to our kids a lot about money matters. In my opinion, kids should not be brought into that conversation. They aren't working. They aren't responsible for money. So why even bring that to them when they're not equipped to handle all of the resulting emotions of that conversation? Should we be teaching them financial literacy? Should we be teaching them about the consequences of their actions? Absolutely. But what we fail to do is to prepare them for the possibility of them being able to overcome it. We hear a lot of conversations about, can we overcome? Will we overcome? We shall overcome. But if we're honest with ourselves as a people, in the back of a lot of our minds, in our collective unconscious, the way we interact with each other shows, and the words that we say to one another says that we don't even believe that it's possible. Why would we squelch the dream of a child? Because it's going to have to take money. It's going to have to take time and effort. Three of the things that we feel that we will never have enough of. When I interact with other Black adults, there is the feeling of fatigue. There's a feeling of tiredness. I play that song as much as people don't really like 2 Chainz and Gucci Mane and all of them, because it at least is coming from a place of them saying they do have options. It's not just the option that you were given at birth, and that's the only thing that there is. They weren't afraid to dream, and yeah, they're doing it through rap music, and they have a lot of other bad choices that they're making that goes along with it. They're at least still dreaming. They're still in a better predicament than a lot of Black people because they are able to imagine a world in which they would have enough to survive and thrive. What people are drawn to in rap music is the upbeat, the feeling that you can be happy. Now, what makes rappers happy? I don't know if I believe every rapper would be happy with all of the things that we think goes along with that: jewelry, name brand clothes, the flying everywhere, the come and go, because they still have to work. The point is that they actually are able to see their work come into something that can take care of them and their kids. So they aren't as fatigued as most people are. And since we go to work every day throughout the week, we come home on the weekends very tired, very hopeless, very helpless. And then to go to a place to hear somebody else feel like there can be something better in life, even if it's just for that time period that you're hanging out those couple of hours on the weekend, you still get a break from the humdrum that drives us into a state of despair. That's another thing that happens in the scarcity mindset. It's a feeling of desperation. Everything is life or death. Everything is the last resort. You're constantly operating from a place where if you don't do this, this is the last opportunity that may ever come your way. So you have to grab it. There's the feeling of impulsiveness. There's a lack of patience, a lack of delayed gratification that also contributes to it comes from the scarcity mindset, and it contributes to our state of perpetual poverty. So why did I think this was a good live for us to talk about today? Well, I believe that a lot of the new movements that we're seeing that is a threat to our unity as Black people, a lot of the separation is coming from that drive of competition. If you believe that there's nothing that can be done for the state that you're in right now, the burn it down community, the I'm leaving community. Well, that comes from a place, in my opinion, and from the experiences, from the conversations that I've had, that comes from a place where the person who's engaging in it believes that there's nothing else left here, that this is now going to become a desert of sorts. They are now believing that they've drained this location of all resources necessary to survive, and they have to move on to greener pastures. Well, oh, thanks, Elise. That picture is me at my birthday one year. So I like to use it because I'm smiling and I truly was happy that day. I want to put forth a picture that says I don't have to buy into the scarcity mindset. So I'm glad to know that I picked a picture that is at least trying to. Oh, thanks, sweetie. I wanted to know that I was putting out a picture that at least says that I can believe in what I'm going to ask everybody to do today after leaving this live, right? Okay. Um, the other thing that like I'm here, I don't want people to think that I'm attacking the community that is saying that it's best for them to leave. I'm not attacking them. I'm not trying to change their mind. My belief, where I'm coming from, I am going to say that I don't think that it's the answer. I don't think that it's going to solve anything. I don't think that the people who are leaving the community are going to find what it is that they're looking for. But part of what I'm realizing is that they might have given up on that past dream that we had about finding peace here. And so they're leaving because they don't think it's possible here. My position is that the ones who are willing to stay, well, let's stop focusing so much on them leaving. Let's just do what we think it is that can be helpful, that can bring us some positivity, some uplifting, daily lifestyle. And then if it works out, if we work out all the kinks out of the plan and we finally get to a place where we feel that we can thrive and we feel it within ourselves and the scarcity mindset is alleviated, then they'll come back and then they can participate. And we would actually have a viable plan that we can explain and, ask them to participate in. Right now, I think a lot of the criticism is there isn't anything that we can ask them to participate in. We're basically saying, stay here and we don't know what's going to happen next. So typical me, I do think that I have, an idea on what we can do is that we can develop our own, way of life. We don't have to take what has been handed down to us all of these years through generations. We can completely understand why our parents did it and not walk around with the hatred for what they taught us. Oh, welcome, George Macon. So we don't have to walk around with that anymore because it is a burdensome thought process. We need to understand why they told us that And part of that understanding is knowing that there weren't any options for them. They had a visual reminder, a physical barrier every day to being able to do anything different. We no longer have that. We don't have that excuse anymore. So while we can understand where they're coming from and we lived that way under their leadership, we now have additional opportunities that we're not paying attention to. We don't see the additional opportunities that we have available because we got comfortable. We got comfortable in living our lives according to what we were taught. That is human. That is not something that we need to rake each other over the coals for. That's what we were supposed to do. That's all we knew. When did we find out that there was something else better in life? When we became an adult and were capable of paying attention to our surroundings, understanding it, and going off to do some things. What I think that we should think about our lives as an experiment, and hear me out. I know it sounds weird, right? What I am thinking is that when we have an idea about something, there's nothing wrong with trying it out, seeing if it will work. There's nothing wrong with if you realize that that plan didn't work, developing a different plan, or maybe just tweaking that one, recognizing what about that plan didn't work, and then deciding actively, being an active participant in your life, not just passively allowing life to happen to you. You might be able to fix it. A lot of the things that we have that we enjoy for modern conveniences, the first draft of it probably went horribly wrong. But the person didn't give up because what they were able to visualize in their future was a life where things would be easier. Take, for instance, let's see, the phone, right? Okay, so when the phone was invented, the first few drafts of it probably did not work out well. But they wanted to envision a world. They were already living in a future that had a world where they didn't have to get up, get dressed, go outside and travel to people, where they didn't have to wait weeks for a letter to arrive. They lived in a time period where a phone was already invented, and they refused to give up on that dream. They kept going. They tweaked and tweaked until they finally got a viable plan that worked. And now we all enjoy it. And some of us even take it for granted. We can't afford to stay in a scarcity mindset because that in turn would bring about exactly what we're afraid of. A lot of the lashing out that I see from our interpersonal interactions with people, our interpersonal events, a lot of that lashing out comes from feeling like someone is taking something for granted. Why does that matter? Do we think that the extremely wealthy, do they get mad if they lose a $20 bill? No. And that's what I think we need to think about when we're waking up every day. That's what I think we need to think about when we are interacting with one another. A lot of times we need to be able to let go of some past slight, some past hurt, because there is another day where we can get maybe even something better. At the very least, whatever it is can be replaced and we can be made whole again. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the impact of the scarcity mindset. There is a thing that I think we don't pay attention to in terms of why it would be considered part of the scarcity mindset. Our physical health, the food we eat, our sedentary lifestyle. These are things that arise from, well, if you've heard people when we talk to them about their diet, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die happy. When we talk to them about, working out, oh, well, I don't have time for that. I have to work and then I don't have enough energy for that. It comes from a place of feeling like, oh, well, we're all got to die sometime. Oh, well, there's nothing I can do. It's too late. We as a people already have this as something that's hereditary in our lives. It can't be changed. That concrete feeling of this is life, this is all there will ever be. That is a place that can do nothing but drag us all back down into the depths of depression and despair. When I'm talking with other Black adults, there is the feeling of running into a brick wall. And I've talked about this on other panels. I've talked about this in other chats. There's the feeling of believing that I can't help people my age or older, and even people that are a little bit younger than me. I believe talking to them would be a helpful thing, because when I'm talking with people, I try to restore hope. I try to support their belief in doing something that could bring them happiness and joy. One of the things that perpetuates the cycle of poverty, a lot of the things that plague our community. And I'm calling these plagues because we're not happy about the results of them. The last live was the decreased marriage rates. Well, for all intents and purposes, a lot of the adults that I'm talking to claim to not be happy about the fact that Black adults aren't getting married anymore. Well, if we're not happy about that, have we accepted that that's just life, that Black people as a culture just don't get married? That's not necessarily scarcity mindset. If we're going to be a culture that believes in that and says that that's okay, then there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to say that that no longer brings us sadness. We have to find something happy about the alternative. But if we're not willing to do that, then we need to be willing to commit to making the actual change. So I'm not, picking one or the other. I'm just hoping that after viewing it, you will realize that it's a decision that needs to be made. We have a lot of arguments, a lot of negative interactions, because we have not picked what we want our culture to look like. We have not picked what we think the right answer is. We can't agree on a consensus. And so while we have certain things that are already occurring in our community, it doesn't necessarily mean that the community is headed for destruction. We could just change the way we view it. There's a technique called thought replacement. And our thoughts lead to our emotional state. Our emotional state leads to our behavioral choices. If we change the way we view that event, if we aren't comparing our culture to other cultures, if we're saying that we're going to do this and we feel like it's a positive thing, we feel like it's something that we can still live through. If we feel like it's something that could bring all of us happiness, we can just be the first one to do it. And if it's successful for us and we are happy, and because believe it or not, there are in the other cultures that we compare ourselves to, they're not always happy. They have their own concerns. We just aren't going to ever know what they are unless they tell us. And they don't. They don't go around telling us what their issues are. They're not, a lot of the other cultures are not even supported if they speak against something that's a cultural practice. And then we see the majority culture, they right now are disagreeing on what they want their culture to look like. That's what happens when you have too many options. They don't seem very happy either. So with that being said, I don't think that we should focus on what they're doing. We can talk about what we want to do going forward. So in today's discussion, in terms of poverty, well, we didn't do that to ourselves, but we are currently blaming ourselves for poverty. When you are kidnapped and brought to a new location, you are starting from nothing, and you are now dependent for survival on your captors. That is not something that you did to yourself. And it has an impact. It has a lasting impact. Otherwise, we wouldn't feel that kidnapping is a bad thing. And I feel safe in saying that kidnapping is a bad thing. We don't like when people are kidnapped. We don't like to be kidnapped. It means you are forcibly removed before you are ready from an environment that might have been comfortable or helpful to you. You are placed in a new place and you are not prepared to be there. It's the difference between being taken to another place versus you packing up and bringing along things to get you through the first, years or whatever of being there. It's passive instead of an active choice. There is not a way that we would have been able to avoid poverty. We, as a people being kidnapped, we're going to start off in poverty, because who would kidnap someone and give them all the resources that they need to survive? That is something that is just not done within the same personality traits. It is unreasonable to expect such a thing. So when we can let go of being taught that we are the cause of that, Because what specifically were we doing that said, hey, I would like to be kidnapped? Who can even think of a thought process that says, hey, being kidnapped would be fun? Oh, third degree burns. I'm glad you came in. You now have your wrench. So congrats and welcome. Welcome. You know, we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So anyway, there was no way for us to have done anything to place ourselves in that predicament. Now there are the people that says, oh well, you know, we could have fought back or what have you. What if they did fight back and they lost the fight? We don't know. I wasn't there. And it hasn't been documented. We know what was passed down through word of mouth. We have no idea beyond a reasonable doubt. It doesn't even serve us well to focus on that. It would serve us better to focus on how to get out of it. Yes, it is true that to know how to fix a problem is to understand the source of it and how we got there. But there is a time where you aren't going to ever know how you got there. And the best you could do would be an educated guess. That's what we're doing here. So if you have an educated guess, we would be doing trial and error. And we would either find out that we are correct and we have now solved the problem, or we would find out that we're incorrect. But meanwhile, we still have a job to do. Oh, hey, Chef Disaster, welcome. So my point for all of this, yes, because I know I can be a little bit long-winded. To be honest with you, thinking about how we got there, how does anybody ever get to poverty? Something was taken or either something was squandered. The point is you have an absence of something. Scarcity mindset is only when you believe that you will never be able to gather enough. I don't think that that is an absolute truth for our community. I don't think that is something that we have to accept as, completely correct. I do think that it is possible for us to be able to gather enough resources to be able to sustain our survival, but we have to gather enough of the intangible things first. So I do have a live that I was planning to do, the intangible self-harm, the things that we do to ourselves. But I think it's best to do this one first, and then I can do that one a little bit later. I wanted to be able to talk to you guys to be able to understand and explain why we do the self-harm. So the intangible things that we believe that we'll never have enough of. The first one being time. We believe that we'll never have enough time. That's what I'm hearing, is that we don't have enough time to correct the problems in the Black community. We're running out of time. I don't understand how that could possibly be a thing. As long as Black people walk the earth, there's still more time. As long as somebody wakes up in dark, skin, there's still more time. Time is infinite. So why do we as a people believe that there's some limit to it? What's the ending? When does time end for Black people? And the answer, when we stop living, when we give up, when we essentially commit our own genocide, when we take ourselves out. Because there has not been, after everything that this culture has gone through, there has not been a way to annihilate Black people off of the planet. Because let's just, get into a little bit of the science thing. I'm not a scientist, but my understanding is, even if they, and they being everyone outside of the Black community, even if there was a way to get rid of everyone with dark skin or with any amount of African DNA, right? At some point, our DNA mutates. And so they would probably, end up recreating another Black race. So I don't think that is possible. Oh, welcome, King. Thanks for the blessing. I don't think that it's possible for them to be able to annihilate our race. And what that means is, hey, China, welcome. What that means, in my opinion, is that there is no possibility for our time to end. So therefore, it is not an accurate thought process. It's not a logical belief that we don't have enough time. We are time, essentially. I'm going to be real philosophical. So that's something that we need to get out of our heads. When we are discussing what should happen for our community, We should not be saying things like we're running out of time. That's my viewpoint. That's my opinion. And I'm willing to discuss why anyone else would believe that we are running out of time. Like, what's the deadline? What is it that we're trying to do that has an end time goal to it? Because as long as we keep having children, we are still going to exist. And when those children, are born, they now usher in at least another, 80 years of Black people. So I don't think that it's something that, oh, welcome yourself. Hey, I'm glad you can make it. I don't think that it's something that it would serve us well to walk around believing every morning. If you wake up feeling like Black people are running out of time, we're running out of time, you then begin to do impulsive things. So I don't want people who are considering leaving the community to feel like I'm attacking you. But in my belief system, it is kind of impulsive. It is a feeling of wanting something right now that you're not getting and hoping to find it in a different place. I don't believe that the other place has it. I believe that the other place is luring you there, saying that they have it, or either you believe that they have it. I don't think that they have anything bigger or better than what we have. How could they? Everything on this planet, we all have access to it. We just have to be willing to go out and get it and pick it up like they did. No one owns the earth. I've had this conversation with like who people would consider to be tree huggers, right? No one owns the water on the planet. How can you charge for bottled water? Well, you're not charging for the water. You're charging for getting out what we consider to be contaminants. We want to put nothing but the best into our body, right? So you're charging for things like that. You're not charging for what is actually already here. So why is it that another culture can have something that you want or need and feel like will be helpful to your survival when they can't own it? Why do we have to go through them to get it? So that's my concern, is that I don't want people that I care about, because I do still care about the community that's leaving. I do. And we need y'all, and I don't want y'all to leave. But I understand as an adult, if you feel that that would be a good idea, maybe you need to try it. And maybe if you go over there and then you realize that they don't have anything more than you already had, that you would be able to rest and stop running. I feel that we as a people aren't as calm as we need to be in order to think logically about where we're going in the future, what we're leaving here for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and further descendants. So they don't own it. They can't give it to you. They can't lure you over with it if you don't let them. So I'm not judging, but I would feel sad hearing that the community that left was hoodwinked, that they were tricked. Because in my opinion, it's another form of kidnapping. It's another form of bringing someone somewhere and then not delivering on the promise, not being able to ensure that they won't have to me, they would be starting over from a scarcity mindset. They would be starting from a place of emotional poverty, whether the resources are there or not. And who says that anybody gets to own that? They just took ownership of it, and no one has been able to take the ownership back. I believe that the best option would be for us to work together and find a way to take the ownership. I do have a question though. If we do become in charge, if we become the majority race, are we going to do the same things? So I don't currently identify as a Christian, but I do consider myself to still be spiritual. And I learned a lot of things in the Christian faith that I believe is still helpful. One, take none of your oppressor's ways. If we are the oppressed culture and the oppressing culture does certain things that arises in us, like that, it arouses a spirit of fighting back, of unhappiness. What do we think we would get out of doing the same thing that they did? The definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So we need to be like, I don't feel that we're ready to take control until we can determine what we would actually do with the control. What's our goal? What do we look forward to? These are things that a scarcity mindset keeps you from being able to even imagine, let alone coming up with a logical and a viable plan. Poverty goes along with that because if you believe that you'll never have enough money, like, there are these stats out there that say that raising a kid from birth to 18 costs a certain amount of money, right? Well, money changes value. So it continuously goes up. We charge more for things that are new because it's more convenient than doing things the old-fashioned way. If we didn't always need everything to happen right now, if we were a culture that understood and could tolerate emotionally, if we could emotionally tolerate delayed gratification, then we wouldn't feel the need to chase behind money so much. I'm not saying that we don't need money to survive. What I am saying is we don't need as much of it as we think we do. We survived a whole lot of times when there wasn't money. We can do it again. If everything is predicated on money, those who have the money can dangle it in front of you like a carrot. And that's what I think is happening with the reparations discussion. If we're living in what's considered to be poverty, some of the happiest people that I've met have not been rich. That is because with more money comes more problems. You now have to find a way to protect it because it's now what you did with your time. It's now what you did with your efforts. All of the things that you sacrificed to be able to get that amount of money now is predicated on you being able to keep it. Otherwise, it was all for naught. It was in vain. And we don't like to believe that. We don't like to think that something that we did no longer matters, that it was in vain. So why even put our time and effort into amassing that amount of wealth, because we don't actually need it to get the resources that would help with our survival? We could just get the resources. Who says we should have to give money for them? Was money given to us to take the resources in the first place? But we have been told that we can't have it back unless we give money or gold or whatever the standard is. So I brought all of this to say is that poverty doesn't necessarily equate to unhappiness. It's what goes along with poverty. The belief system that you don't know if you will get another meal, that you don't know where you're going to sleep at night. Those things that bring you to a place of desperation. That is what causes the unhappiness. If we were able to forgive one another for not being able to get as much money or as much education as we were able to get through whatever means, if we could forgive one another and be able to help one another and take care of one another, we would collectively need less resources, so we wouldn't have to amass as much money. And then during this time, we could get to know one another, feel connected again, to where now I do feel something for my neighbor who gets sick, or my neighbor who's going through something, or my neighbor who was killed. So on today, we all woke up to the news that one of our Black men has died in such a tragic fashion. I won't spend a whole lot of time on it because that's not this type of channel. But how many people feel connected to him, and why? He was in the spotlight. How many other people died today that wasn't in the spotlight? How many people died today that had nobody connected to them for whatever the reason was? They were lost from the people that felt a connection to him. It doesn't always have to be blood relation to feel a connection to someone. We should still be impacted. We should care about how the person died. So once we can do that, when we have enough for ourselves for the day, we can give some to somebody who might be going through something where they could not get something that they needed for that day. That could foster a sense of unity, and it would be returned back to you. Maybe not directly through that individual, but through another interaction. Maybe there needs to be a third thing that happens, and then you would see, the return on investment. We also have to understand that part of adulting is you don't always get paid for everything that you do that is the right answer. Sometimes you do it just because it's the right thing. Do you have to get candy every time you do something right? Are we still working for gold stars and stickers? That was taught to us so that we created a habit of doing appropriate behaviors that we have all believed would lead to positivity, that would lead to a well-balanced society, that would lead to peace for all of us, to the greater good. Once we are old enough to understand why, we then need to internalize the want, the desire to do things like that. And unfortunately, there are some adults that have not done this. That, in my opinion, is still a scarcity mindset. It's coming from desperation. The belief that if you don't stockpile for tomorrow, that there won't be enough, that there won't be something that comes to you that you would need. But if we are all helping one another, if you don't have it tomorrow, somebody else might. Because when you free up time for somebody else that doesn't have to spend their day now searching to survive, they have enough available. They have the energy, they have the effort that you may not have on that day. And so they would not mind sharing with you now. And that is what underlines unity. I don't think that I'm saying anything that we don't already know, but maybe it just needs to be said again. Maybe it needs to be illuminated and focused on more so than what we don't have as a collective. There's a lot of things that we don't have. But have you woken up today to think about the things that you do have? Because if not, then you are in fact still living in a scarcity mindset. Um, that's that's pretty much all that I had prepared for today. And so if there's any questions, you guys can go ahead and type those in the chat. I'll answer them if there are any questions. If there's anybody that wanted to come up and speak their piece on the subject, I would be open to that. But if not, we'll go ahead and end it here because I have a goal of wanting to be able to, if it's just me, I want to keep the lives to less than an hour. If there's someone else on the panel, then I would be willing to stretch it out to like an hour and a half or 2 hours. Oh, thanks, sweetheart. Brilliance, right? I like to think so. Okay. So, with that being said, I don't see any questions, and let's give me 1 second. I'm just seeing if I could get to a yeah. So I'm not seeing a song that I think would be appropriate to end this live discussion today. So I'll just leave with this. What we think is in fact under our control. What our interests are when we have free time. What we look towards, what we focus on, what we bring ourselves to, the environments that we go to. These are for the most part under our control. There are times, oh, thanks, third degree. And thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks, guys, for all of the positive feedback. And as always, any dissenting feedback, as long as it's respectful, is very welcome. I am willing to have the conversation with almost anybody. So these things are for the most part under our control. I am not going to pretend that there aren't times where it's not under our control. But what my goal is, if we foster the unity that I was describing earlier, even when you have to go to that place, that dark place, because it wasn't in your control, you would have people that you trust and that people that are available and would make the time and energy and effort to bring you back from that deep, dark place. They will be willing to do so because they don't believe that their time, money, and energy is a finite resources. These are the things that are intangible. There literally is no ending to those things. Time, energy, effort, attention. These are all things that can be replenished. But a lot of us don't know how to. That's something that we need to start teaching our children. When our children have downtime, it's not about filling it up with extracurricular activities so that you can brag to other people. It's about teaching them how to do the intangible things for themselves and others. It's about fostering the desire for them to want to help others to come out of those places. So when we, for instance, I'm going to use that as an example. When we show up to work, there are times where what we focus on or what we're thinking about at that moment is not under our control. Let's say your supervisor is having a bad day and they want to just go off on everybody in the office. So they want to spend a whole hour Monday morning telling everybody what they did wrong. You do have to focus on that, and that's not within your control. But what is within your control is the people around you who are able to and willing to bring you out of that place, because they don't feel like giving you an hour of their time to help you feel better is going to cut them out of something that they would need later on. When we tell people no, it's because we feel that we aren't going to have that time to get back. We feel that we aren't going to have that energy to get back. Energy is replaced every night unless there's a medical thing that's going on, in which case we wouldn't ask that person to do strenuous activity. We'd ask somebody else who could. That person can find a different way to contribute to the community. So when we tell people that we don't want to hang out with them, it's because we're feeling, a lot of times it's because we're feeling a calm at that moment, and we feel that we aren't going to be able to get that back if we let somebody take it from us. So once we believe that it is in fact possible and we know how to replenish the intangible things, we'll be more willing and more capable to help others to come back from that dark place, because we would understand that we do need them. There isn't one person that can live on this planet alone. Not one. Because even if you owned all of the resources and you doled it out to everyone, you now don't have anybody that can stop someone else from taking it. You don't have the time and the energy to be able to do that anymore. So it's not a logical thought process to even try to start living through. So in closing, my hope is that we can start developing groups of people who can then come together and form bigger groups of people. I'm not asking for us to start sharing money. This is not about socialism. This is, in fact, about the intangible parts. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money and resources because I'm not a financial advisor. But I am saying that the things that aren't quantified in terms of a bank account statement, we need to focus on helping each other replenish that first. And then we will be in a better position to fight for the resources that we are, in fact, entitled to. Does everyone understand that we are, in fact, entitled to enough of a portion of the resources on this planet to be able to survive? We are. So I'm hoping that no one would allow someone to tell them that they're not going forward in this week. That's my hope for you guys, right? Well, thank you all for coming in and joining. And so I'm going to try to do these topics every 2 weeks. I haven't decided what the next series is going to be. And as always, any feedback, as long as it's respectful, leave it in the comments below. And I will talk to you guys another time.